YINLIN is a S tier character for sure. In terms of her design, just look at her leg. Woo! But what about her gameplay? YINLIN has finally came out in the live Wedding Wave server, and today I want to talk about my overall first impression with the new YINLIN compared to the beta, because unfortunately they did change her a lot, mostly in terms of nerf, as well as her potential partner, Kocharo. Now, I want to make it very big disclaimer is that first impression video are not necessarily a guide, because rotation and stuff like that would take a week to come out, so I feel like it is pretty unfair for me to make a complete breakdown right now when we haven't figured out her full rotation yet and stuff like that. So this is more of a how I feel about these characters after getting my hands on it for a few hours, rather than here's what the definite answer about is this character really good. You'll see that a little bit later when we have the complete information studied, so subscribe for that video. With that being said, let's get started with my first impression with YINLIN. YINLIN is going to be our first electro sub DPS in the game. When you cast your heavy attack with a full forte circuit, it will mark the enemy, and then any other character that hit them later will get struck with lightning from YINLIN. YINLIN is actually a very good AoE electro damage dealer. All her attack cover a large amount of range, including any attack that she perform in the background. The most common complaint that I have seen around everyone who is playing the new YINLIN is that she felt extremely clunky. YINLIN has some extremely long animation, and the most important part is that they removed it a majority of the swap cancel available to YINLIN. Your basic combo on YINLIN is pretty straightforward, starting off with a intro followed by a skills, do 4 attack, and then do a second part of the skills, do your charge attack into your ult, and finally you can switch out. Make sure you're really careful to try not to cancel off any attack when it comes down to YINLIN. At the very least, make sure each of your attack is going to connect. The most important one is going to be your second E, because you have to wait for YINLIN to land, then the attack will initiate. If you do like a dash or a jump before it lands, you'll cancel out the entire thing. Then let me show you. So this is the first part of the E, and if I initiate and then I do a dash before I land, you lose the entire attack then, and that loses your entire rotation. To be honest, I actually think YINLIN is a very solid character. She has pretty good damage, but most importantly, she has pretty smooth rotation in terms of just getting her own stuff out. Her energy recharge requirement doesn't seem to be too high and stuff like that. She has a lot of things going for her. But the main problem of YINLIN is that A, she is a little clunky here and there, and 2, she doesn't have a team right now. The main problem is that between all of these attacks, you have a very long animation that you kind of have to hit because you have to generate your forte circuit. And it's very difficult to swap cancel. The main reason why is because they changed her skill to the point where if you switch out, her skill will now deactivate. So the way it works is that if you cast your skills, there's a second part. But if you do a swap at any time, you can see that you cannot cast the second part again. So you have to stay on her on the field the entire time. I'll suggest that everyone go into the YINLIN trial and actually test her animation out, other than just looking at her boobas, because yeah, YINLIN does have one of the best animation, but you can also see that they are a little weird to come out. This is because YINLIN kind of uses a puppet as her weapon, so the weapon is kind of attached and it always have a very big startup lag. In comparison to a character like Yenwu who just basically punch, every time you click your button, you attack. Where YINLIN, if you click a button, she has to pull the puppet out before she attacks. And while this problem is a lot less noticeable in the trial because the enemy doesn't attack you, doing these really long startup animation in a high-speed boss fight against stuff like hologram or bosses in general could be a lot more devastating. YINLIN also have a difficulty time parrying. You can parry with your first attack, but the parry window is kind of weird in my experience. This is speaking kind of from experience, I don't really know for a fact, but I do know that a lot of people were complaining that YINLIN do have a really awkward parry window. One of the first things they changed about this game is that outro now disappear if you swap off the field. So if you're playing something like YINLIN Kocharo and then you do a swap cancel on your Kocharo, you will lose the entire YINLIN deepen bonus, and that's a lot of damage. One of the biggest problems with Kocharo is that he has a very long animation on his Death Messenger finisher. So what you typically do is to cast it and then swap cancel all of it like you see on the screen. It is not that you can't swap cancel all of Kocharo anymore, but you just lose all the benefit that YINLIN give you if you do swap cancel out. So if you have a long attack coming into you, you have to decide if you want to swap cancel off your long animation and avoid getting hit, but losing your YINLIN buff in the process, or stay on Kalcharo maintaining your YINLIN buff, but then probably taking a bunch of damage. And this is one of the biggest problems, is that Kalcharo got a lot clunkier after the beta, and so did YINLIN, and now Kalcharo plus YINLIN is just a super clunky team. To be fair, when I swapped to using Yanwu, who is a 4-star Electro character, as my main DPS, I honestly has a pretty good experience. Yanwu play very smooth compared to Kalcharo. He has a very easy time playing. He has a good amount of defensive utility on him, including anti-resistance, or if you have his high sequence unlock, he can even provide you a shield. I honestly much rather run Yanwu YINLIN instead of Kalcharo YINLIN just because it is significantly smoother. However, that does also mean that the potential power level of a YINLIN team does drop by a good amount, because now we don't have the Kalcharo as a DPS anymore. But the thing is, Wedding Wave is a very dynamic game. The boss is going to be attacking you all the time and you're forced to dodge and parry. You should never expect to follow a perfect rotation. And this is why I think, in my opinion, people should be playing the character that give them a smoother experience instead of the character that give them the highest damage. Because one, you have the question of, can you yield the highest damage? Is it actually possible? And two, are you going to enjoy doing that if your experience isn't smooth in the first place? This is why when it comes down to a video like First Impression, I'm much more focused on how the character is performing in terms of its rotation, its energy, is its playstyle smooth, rather than saying, oh, this character does a lot of damage, it is so good, it's the best. Because one, we don't have that information on us right now, not on the first day, but two, I care about the smoothness of the character a lot more, because I feel like that is what people actually care about, the overall experience when it comes down to playing the character. Don't get me wrong, you can definitely still run Kalcharo with YINLIN, and if you're a Kalcharo main, you probably should. YINLIN is still one of the best sub DPS option that has to offer right now for Kalcharo. If you're a Kalcharo main, I will still put them together, but you should expect to have a little rocky time playing it together, at least compared to other options like, again, playing YINLIN together with Yanwu. In fact, if you like YINLIN, or you like Kalcharo and you want a good team for Kalcharo, or you like Yanwu, then I think pulling for YINLIN is a pretty solid option in all of these cases. She's still a pretty solid characters, and those are still the pairing you would do for that, but it might not be as overpowered as you previously expected when you first heard it from the beta. I think YINLIN is an incredibly fun character, a incredibly satisfying character, and her animation are top notch. So if your goal is just to have fun with this game, then I think pulling YINLIN into your team is a pretty good option, because she works with all of the characters, like even Trixia. You can trigger all the thunder on Trixia's skills. My point is, if you're just trying to have fun in this game because you like YINLIN animation, which by the way is one of the best, then I think it's a fine option. But when it comes down to pulling YINLIN for character strength, then I definitely have some doubts. I think at best right now, if I were to guess, YINLIN is at best a A-tier character. And it, for the most part, just comes down to the fact that there isn't really a great DPS to go with YINLIN right now. We have Yanwu and we have Kalcharo, and I think both of those has individual problem, with Yanwu probably not doing that much damage, or Kalcharo just having really big clunkiness problem. If they ever come out with a new Electro characters in the future that pair really well with YINLIN, I think YINLIN could be one of the best Electro sub DPS in the game, because her outro is just so good. Her outro gives 20% Electro damage amplify in addition to 25% alt resonance liberation damage amplify. I know a lot of people are going to ask this as well, even though YINLIN is designed to be a sub DPS, can you play her as a main DPS? And again, if that's what's fun for you, definitely go for it, because she has the hottest animation in gacha game history by far. But to clear a couple of things up, if you have Kalcharo from the standard banner and you ask me, oh, should I roll for YINLIN so I can pair them together? No, I would not. Unless you like Kalcharo and you're already playing Kalcharo. I would not pull for YINLIN even though you have a Kalcharo just to play that team, unless you like it. The same goes for Yanwu. If you like the Yanwu characters, or you like YINLIN and you want a really good YINLIN team, then you can do the Yanwu YINLIN pairing. But if you don't like these characters, then there's no reason to go for YINLIN at all. That's my current stand with my first impression. Mostly just because of gameplay problem. Maybe she has some insane number that will change our mind a week later, but we'll see about that in a week. So with that being said, subscribe to this video. Short first impression. See you guys later. If you want my overall final word, I think she's pretty decent, has potential, but play pretty clunky, so you might not have a very smooth experience. On top of all the other nerfs, which I think have to bump her from what we previously expected to be a really good Electro sub DPS, or even a really good Electro team, into a just pretty good characters that you can pull for if you like, but feel free to skip if you don't. That's my overall word.